Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever, whenever you're listening to the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. British by birth, American by choice, just like the Founding Fathers, and proud of it too. Welcoming you to episode 256, yes, that's right, 256, of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. Today we're going to talk about the weird, we're going to talk about the weak, we're going to talk about criminal action even. Plenty of different topics, so folks, I'm going to go straight into my weekly commentary. First of all, I should say, the show is coming to you again from Southwest Florida. Nice to be somewhere where it's nice and warm. It's been pretty cold up in my neck of the woods and very wintry in major parts of the U.S., but down here it's nice and warm and I'm enjoying that. Well, anyway, so time for the weekly commentary. And this week's weekly commentary, yes, lots of little topics. First of all, and I think I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating because this is a very good one. You may remember that a while back when he was running the first time for office, Obama was caught somewhere talking about how the people in the heartland cling to their guns and religions, and he thought that was very sort of very stupid of them, and of course the other left-wing folks also do a lot of denigrating of Christians and gun lovers. But strangely enough, when the shoe is on the Muslim foot, you don't hear them talking about gun control on ISIS and telling them to lose their guns and religion. I wonder why that is. And next little topic in the weekly commentary. Last week was CPAC, so lots of interest there, lots of conservatives coming up to speak to the chosen that were able to participate in the CPAC convention. Of course, an important part of the convention, well, I say important, an interesting part, I don't think it's that important, is the straw poll. Now, Jeb Bush, and I'll give him his credit for that, because he's not really seen as a conservative, braved the lions and went up to CPAC and was up there on stage with Sean Hannity, who seems to be fawning over Jeb Bush because he keeps playing that section and not so much the others that he interviewed, but that's something else. Well, what they didn't show, of course, was that when Jeb Bush came up on stage, half the hall emptied, and the other half that was in there were Jeb Bush supporters that had pretty much been bussed in that day. Now, of course, the Jeb Bush campaign said, oh, no, we were just helping these people who were looking for ways to get to the site, and so they arranged buses for them. Yes, right. They bussed in supporters, and they had to do that so they could bolster his results in the straw poll. The straw poll is interesting. It's not important because it doesn't really mean that much. Well, in spite of bussing all these people in, they didn't really get their money's worth because he only came in fifth. Of course, he did beat a series of other people, which was perhaps unfortunate. The actual winner was Rand Paul for the third year running, which shows you how important this straw poll is, because it really doesn't mean much. Rand Paul is still very much a dark horse and doesn't have that, he has about as much chance of getting selected for candidate as his father did. And he's the perennial CPAC winner, but loses in the primaries. But the important or interesting result in this was who was number 2. Scott Walker was just a few percentage points behind Rand Paul, way ahead of all of the others, including Jeb Bush, but everybody else that was part of the straw poll. So that was a very interesting one. So the straw poll, while not important, definitely interesting, and of course it has catapulted Scott Walker even more to the forefront, which, to be very honest, he had already kind of reached, because you could tell that by the vitriolic attacks on him by the left, and they're sort of dreaming up all sorts of stuff like that absolutely stupid invented thing about the fact that he left college early and trying to make something out of that. Well, that fell flat on its face, but I think it was just absolutely disgusting, and we see this time and time again, and I'm going to make some comments about some disgusting things tonight as well. But the regressives, right, making comments about, is he intelligent enough to be president because he dropped out of college? Well, he made college, he made 3 years of college, and just because he saw a better opportunity to go off, but they're insinuating that he wasn't intelligent enough. Well, let's think about all the people who dropped out of college, like Bill Gates, etc. Many presidents who never went to college, were they not intelligent? No, this is again, Howard Dean was the one that started that, but it was mirrored by many others on the left, and it's just unbelievable how disgusting that is, and so untrue. But it fell flat on its face, pretty much. They tried to get that going, but nobody picked it up. Okay, so that was actually a couple of topics. Let's move on to the next one. And the next topic here is talking about negotiating. We see how the regime seems to be very good at negotiating with the GOP, because they basically got them over a barrel. I'm going to be coming back to that as well. But as good as they are at home, they're very weak abroad. Now we see how the negotiations with Iran are going, and basically in the same way that the GOP has to give Barry everything that he wants, Barry is giving Iran pretty much everything that they want, and they call it a good deal. No, it's not. And of course, we had Bibi Netanyahu speaking in Congress today, and was it 59, I think, all told, of the regressives that boycotted Bibi didn't come to the floor? Absolutely disgusting. Just because you don't agree with someone, you ignore them, you don't want to hear what they have to say. That just shows how warped, how twisted, how bottom-feeding, just how thuggish the regressives are. And we see that also with the way they force the GOP to do their will. But I'm going to come to that. Just to make a political point, these 59 people stick their heads in the sand regarding Iran. They just don't want to. They don't want to listen. Obviously, U.S. safety is not at the top of their list. And I think they're very stupid for putting ideology ahead of the safety of America. Now, on Fox News earlier, Brit Hume made a very good point, and one or two other commentators, I believe, have said the same thing. The Caliph missed an excellent opportunity to minimize the impact of this speech. What he should have done, instead of being like a spoilt child and stamping his foot and basically being very confrontational. He should have said, yes, Bibi, come over to the White House. I'll meet with you. We'll come out after the meeting. And he could have made a statement and say that he agrees with Israel's stance that Iran should not have a bomb. But they still have differences over the approach. No problem with that. But that he would also take Israel's concerns into account in the negotiations. Nice and conciliatory, friendly, and it would have taken the winds out of the sails of Bibi's speech. Instead, he does his spoilt child act, stamps his foot, and has a number of his cronies adding to the stamp-footedness. I mean, you can just see this guy as an absolute narcissist. And yeah, he was just super arrogant, refused to meet with him, was very confrontational, and this made more of the speech than it would have been with the softly approach. But let's remember, the king is too arrogant. He's too much of a narcissist to see that, and all hope is lost there. He never will. Okay, let's see. I think we've got plenty of time for some more topics. So let's go back to this negotiation with the GOP, right? Now, let's go back a little bit in history first before we talk about what happened now. Let's remember when Dingy Harry held the Senate, the regressives sat on bills. At least Dingy Harry did, refused to bring them up for the vote. Ignoring the House could push all these bills through, but they were basically ignored, sat upon, no votes, no amendments allowed, none of the usual things. So what happens? We, the people, say we're fed up with that, so we're going to elect Republicans to a majority in the Senate. So now the GOP holds the Senate, and they can do a lot more. And the regressives are using the filibuster to block the will of the people. Think about it. In other words, elections don't have consequences. And whatever they say, the regressives, that is, whatever they say or want must happen, whether they're in power or out of power. In other words, they are petty dictators, yes. And of course, the most recent thing, the GOP caved on the unconstitutional immigration executive order. They took that out of the Department of Homeland Security funding. I can't believe that they did that. More and more power is being taken from Congress by the regime, and the GOP has no idea whatsoever what to do. So they're a bunch of weaklings with no idea, no political ideas. It's time to get rid of Boehner. I'm not sure of the procedure, but is there any way to have a vote of no confidence? In the UK, we have that. In Parliament, they can initiate a vote of no confidence, and if the Prime Minister loses it, then actually they call a new election. Now, because of the way you do elections here on fixed periods, we can't do that. But is there no way to get rid of Boehner? Boehner has to go, and a lot of the other establishment. What should the GOP be doing? Well, they should show some backbone. Here's a suggestion. What they should have done when Harry Reid and the regressives in the Senate were threatening to use the filibuster, they should have shown some backbone and say, if the Dems use the filibuster to block this bill, the GOP will block every single appointment that King Barry puts forward for the rest of his term. They should have said that. Stood up. Because people will support you if you stand up for what you believe. We elected you. You promised to do something about this illegal immigration, this unconstitutional illegal immigration amnesty. You promised to do something about it, and you broke your promise. Yet again. And you know what else? And now all of a sudden, the White House confirmed Monday that the president is very interested in the idea of raising taxes through unilateral executive action. Yeah, because he knows nobody is going to stand against him. That's why. That's why we have to do it. Folks, okay, I'm going to take a quick commercial break. I've still got some topics I want to handle, and talking about the Netanyahu speech and the some specific things. Yeah, so I've got a few more topics. So stick with me, folks. I will be back after these messages.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break. Let's go on with my weekly commentary, and just mentioned about how the White House confirmed that the president is very interested in the idea of raising taxes through unilateral executive action. Yes, because nobody's going to stand up to him, and they're going to let him be the banana republic dictator that we always knew he would be, and he's turned out to be. And folks, we deserve everything we get from this a-hole. Andrew Napolitano, the judge on the Fox News channel, called him a lone wolf president, and that's exactly what he is. But, folks, I don't know how he can even think of getting away with this. But then again, yeah, just look at the weak response from the GOP. Are you surprised? Okay. And, of course, because of that, then we get the regressives think they can do anything they like, and what Nancy Pelosi did was awful. She released a statement saying, "I was near tears throughout the Prime Minister's speech, saddened by the insult to the intelligence of the United States." Well, listen to me, Princess Pelosi. You are an insult to the intelligence of the United States. I think Botox has gone to your head and is giving you an early thing of an early case of Alzheimer's, because you blurt out the most stupid things ever. You should be retired. You should go. To quote a phrase, "Is there no one who will rid me of this priestess?" That's your Shakespeare for you, by the way. Very interesting in response to that statement, some of the tweets. And the one I like, it said, "Democrats responded to Netanyahu by bringing up ... Dick Cheney. And with that, I'm officially done with my former party. And congratulations to that tweeter. I think that is exactly the right sentiment. I know it wasn't Pelosi herself, but one of the other people, one of the other Democratic congressmen stood up and said, this is the Dick Cheney playbook. You know that whatever was going on is actually right when they reach back and try and blame it on the people that happened before. And we're going to see that. If it's somebody they don't like, they're going to drag up something and say about what happened in Bush's time. And if it's something they want to do, they'll find someone who did it in Bush's time. So you can't win with this lot. You can't. If you have the power, then they will stymie you for it. If you do something one way, they'll say, "Oh, well, Bush did it." If you do something good, they'll do it. They'll say, "Well, it's not good because." I mean, it's always somebody else's fault. Okay, let's see. Still a little bit of weekly commentary. And this, it's not the final one, but this item is about the government finally really getting to drag General Petraeus through the mud. General Petraeus has finally pled guilty, yes, to one count of sharing a classified document with his biographer and mistress at the same time. Yes, his mistress or biographer was writing a book about him, and he shared some information, some documents about his time in Afghanistan. Now, let's remember, this lady also had a top secret clearance, but the document that he shared was probably eyes only, and so she wasn't technically allowed to see it. But let's think about it. Petraeus probably deserved this, because remember, the Rolling Stone reported that he did say some pretty nasty things about the narcissist in chief. And for that, he has to be punished, as petty as it seems. Well, another topic. This one, we're getting, I promised you, weird. I promised you weak. We've talked about the GOP being weak. And I mentioned criminal. We're going to get to that one. But first of all, weird. John Burroughs. Let me talk about a man called John Burroughs, who had a heart problem. He was a vet. So he went to the VA to find out what was going on with his heart. He actually had AFib, afibrillation. It was, he was having huge problems with it. Well, he got to his local VA. First thing they said, "You never served." He said, "What do you mean I never served?" He did serve. He served in the Air Force, and not just in America, but he was even in the UK as well. So he fought that. Finally they said, "Oh yes, we found out that you did serve, but we can't find your records." So he was fighting that for a long period of time. Finally they found the records and said, "Well, we can't get at your records because your records are classified. Your medical records are classified." This is where it starts to get weird. Why would somebody's medical records be classified? What could it possibly be that makes them classified? Anyway, in the meanwhile, he had heard that on the quiet in 2006, the UK had started declassifying certain information. Amongst that was a report called Project Condign. And so Burroughs used the UK equivalent of the Freedom of Information Act to get a number of files. When he released those files to the VA, he was able to get the necessary medical care because that kind of indicated to them what actually was going on. Now, Project Condign was the UK's report on what they called unidentified aerial phenomena. And why do they use that terminology? Because what they described there, of course, we know as UFOs. This is why I said this section is kind of weird. It goes a little away from the political, but there is a political side to this. And of course, part of it is this whole cover-up and classification of stuff that in a way shouldn't be classified. Why is it being classified? So why were his medical records classified? Well, because John Burroughs had been involved in the UFO sightings that occurred in late 1980 in Rendlesham Forest. And I'm not going to go into the whole story about it, but there were two large American Air Force bases in the UK. They were probably a couple of the biggest bases outside of the US at that time, quite close together, and against them, close to them, was this Rendlesham Forest. And in that forest, some strange lights were seen over, I think, about 3 days in December of 1980, if I have the date right. 80, yes, I think it was 80. So not, in a way, not all that long ago. So Rendlesham Forest, and it's one of the most famous UFO cases, ranks up there with Roswell and everything. Of course, this has all been suppressed. The official story was they didn't see any strange lights. It was a lighthouse that was shining, things like that. Anyway, so finally this Project Condign report gets released by the British government. And they get a copy of it, and even though the report is still fairly heavily redacted, well, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to hide? I mean, if something did happen there, why would they want to redact stuff out, right? Very, very strange. What's the government up to? But anyway, the UK report is very interesting because if you read between the lines, it actually kind of admits, and through the VA, because they accepted what came out of that report to treat John Burroughs, in essence, the regime is admitting as well. They are admitting that there is something there which is strange. So the UK report mentions that the people involved, which included Mr. Burroughs, they were exposed to higher than normal levels of UAP radiation. Right? And remember, UAP means UFO. Apparently, the UK changed that because it stymied requests in the first instance for FOIA requests. If you wanted freedom of information request and you said, give me all the information you have on UFOs, they could quite honestly say, we don't have any, because actually, right, they were calling it UAP. So, when they released this report, and the report was passed on to, and some other files associated with that were released at the same time were passed on to the VA said, okay, yes, now we know what went on. And apparently Mr. Burroughs had a heart valve that was completely fragmenting, shredded. And so he had a heart valve repaired, and now he is, full of health, but for a long time he wasn't. So, but think about it. Think about the words that we used. He and others were exposed to higher than normal levels of UAP radiation. So, how does the UK know what normal levels are? Because they must have some measurement to say higher than normal. Isn't that interesting? So, they are admitting not only that what Burroughs saw was a UAP, had radiation, was strange, and probably was not something really earthly, unless we've got these very heavy radiation machines flying around. But not only that, they're admitting that that is not the only one, because these people that were involved with that had higher than normal levels of radiation. UAP radiation. They use the term that way. It's not that they have higher than normal radiation, higher than normal UAP radiation. And because the VA accepted that as, and after he brought that information to their attention, they knew what was wrong with his heart. So the US admits that they know more about it than they let on as well. Interesting, folks. Interesting. Told you it might get a little weird tonight, but on the other hand as well, we also have to try and pay the rent, so I'm a little over my normal break, but here is another commercial break. Be back in a moment.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network. And welcome back. We're into the second half of the show here. Before I continue with some other news, I've got back into the habit of playing some music, and here's a little song that I think most of my listeners will enjoy. And before playing the song, before playing the music, this is actually one by one of my fellow hosts on the Red State Talk Radio Network. I want to remind folks, redstatetalkradio.com, great site, lots of good hosts on there. For the month of February, I'm afraid I slipped out of the top 5 again. I think I was probably 6th or 7th. Very close to the top 5 still, so tell your friends, get them to listen, and put me back up in the top 5. We need to get some of these messages out, and got plenty of interesting things happening around the world. So, and we've got a lot to do. The first Republican primary is going to be as early as August, I hear, of this year. So we need to, I think it's this year. Would it be next year? Should be. No, August. August is probably too late because they do campaign about a year. It's already going to be August of this year. Man, that's going to be a long campaign. Oh, anyway. Yeah, get your friends to listen because we're going to have lots and lots to talk over between now and 2016, and we need all the help we can get to make sure that we get the right candidate and not one of those mealy, weak establishment types. We've got to get someone with some guts, with some backbone, and some cojones, all of them. Okay, folks, but first of all, a little bit of music, and I think, like I said, I think you'll appreciate it, my listeners, and as I said, do tell your friends, get them to listen along, because we need to spread the message.
Obama has accomplished much. Obama has not lost his touch. Obama, yes, he must be flush. It's time to change it back. Obama sucks. Obama has exposed his game. Obama's politics are lame. Obama has that middle name, and voters all exclaim, Obama sucks. Obama doesn't care at all. Obama's goal, America falls. Obama and his left cabal, conservatives appalled. Obama sucks. Obama speaks, he always lies. Obama shed his lame disguise. Obama and his leftist ties plan America's demise. Obama sucks. Obama grips the country now. Obama quite like Chairman Mao. Obama must be stopped somehow. For that we do a vow. Obama sucks. Obama and his states are blue. Obama taxing me and you. Obama fans becoming few. Scary times, that's true. Obama sucks. Obama busy, he's having fun. Obama soon will have it done. Obama's work must be undone. Obama must be shunned. Obama sucks. Obama sucks. Obama sucks. Obama sucks. Obama sucks.
The Jimmy Z Show.
And thanks to my fellow host on the Red State Talk Radio Network, that is Jimmy Z, and with Obama Sucks. And I haven't played that in a while, listening to the words, and believe me, that song is 2 or 3 years old. It's one that I kind of dug up from my archives. But you listen to the words, and it's become even more true today. So, and I saw Rex saying, now this is funny. Well, it is funny in one way, but it's not funny in another way because it's too much truth in the song. And forgot to mention, say hi to the folks in the chat room, Rex and Paul, my regular chat room listeners are in there. If you're listening live, and unfortunately I can't see how many people are listening live, sometimes I see there are a few, do participate in the chat room. Lots of interesting things going on there. If you're listening to a recording, you're not listening live, then do send me an email if you've got questions or comments, stefan@patrickcomelately.us, or you can go to my website, www.patrickcomelately.us, click on the contact button, type in your question or your comment, and it gets to me. I love hearing from my listeners. I will reply to your comments, questions directly, but also try and do as much as possible, bring them into the show and let folks know what you're asking. And thanks to Rex as well for the comments on Facebook about last week's show. Apparently he liked it, so it's nice to know that I'm not just talking into a black hole. And a comment there is, Jimmy Z still alive? I hadn't heard about his demise, but who knows? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you know more than I do. Okay, let's go on, and we're going to go to other news for the second half of the show. And just to sort of see what can be done, over in Europe, Austria has passed a new Islam law to prevent parallel societies. Now, Austria actually had a law about Islam called the Islam Law, which governed the status of Muslims in the country, which was passed about 100 years ago. This was at the time when the Habsburg Imperial Army of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, they annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1908, and of course there were a lot of Muslims living there. So 1912, they passed a law, and it kind of basically guaranteed Muslims freedom of religion in Austria. So Islam is recognized as an official religion, and therefore they could practice their religion in accordance with the laws of the state. Now, after the First World War, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, the number of Muslims in Austria was reduced to just a few hundred. But since World War II, and actually more the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, guest workers from Turkey and the Balkans, refugees from Bosnia in the 1990s coming in, and today there's over 500,000 there, which is roughly 7% of the total Austrian population. Austria is just a very small country, and this is almost doubled since 2001, so that's over 10 years, and more than tripled since 1990. So growing very, very quickly. And some of the schools in Vienna, for example, the Muslims are in the majority. So, I mean, things are shifting very quickly. So Austria decided they had to change the law, and so it's a 9-page text, none of these 2,000-page bills like we have over here. And it regulates at least a dozen separate issues, including some things like Muslim holidays, Muslim cemeteries, dietary practices, and the activities of Muslim clergy in hospitals, prisons, and the army. And these were demands, I was going to say suggestions, but these are actually demands put forth by the Muslim groups in the country. However, the new law went beyond what the Muslims had wanted. For example, the law seeks to prevent the growth of a parallel Islamic society in Austria by regulating the mosques and the training of imams. For example, imams now are required to be proficient in German. And the new law also requires Muslim organizations and groups to terminate the employment of clerics who have criminal records or who pose a threat to public safety, order, health, and morals, or the rights and freedoms of others. There is a paragraph in the law that limits the religious and political influence of foreign governments by prohibiting foreign countries, and in Austria's case, mainly Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and the Arab Gulf states, from financing Islamic centers and mosques in Austria. And there will be an employment ban for foreign clerics starting March 31st, 2016. And this applies especially to Turkey. Turkey used to be a very secular country, but now 60 of the 300 Muslim clerics working in Austria are actually Turkish civil servants who are being paid for by the Turkish government's Religious Affairs Directorate. So Austria thinks that these reforms are a milestone and were aimed at preventing certain Muslim countries from using financial means to exert political influence. Very brave of you, Austria. I think that's very good. There is also another part of the law which states that Muslim organizations must have a positive attitude towards society and state or be shut down. We should have such a law here, but of course that would run foul of all sorts of amendments, First Amendment to start off with, so it's unlikely. They don't have that kind of strong freedom of speech law in Austria, so they could do it. But I wonder if you could get round the First Amendment with this requiring a positive attitude towards society and state. Of course, the Muslims hate this, but and the right wing don't think the law goes far enough. So plenty of controversy there. But at least they have tried. Okay, folks, I see it's time for the third break. Time flies when you're having fun, right? I think I've said that before, and I'll say it again. But anyway, let's go to this commercial break, and then we will talk about the final of my tripartite. What was it? Criminal, weak, and weird. We've had the weak, we've had the weird, and now for the criminal.
Reporting from the eye of the storm. This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks. And I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again. I'm predicting this storm front is heading your way, so call Basement Systems and relax.
Call 800-205-8665 for your free in-home inspection, or visit basementradiooffer.com. That's 800-205-8665, or visit basementradiooffer.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-750-5371. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-750-5371. That's 877-750-5371.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. Okay, folks, we're into the last segment of the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, but American by choice. And we've got one more topic that I would like to bring up. And we're going to talk about our dear friend Hitlery being in hot water. If you've been listening to the news, especially Fox News, I don't think we'll see much of this on the lamestream media, but it turns out that Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, has been caught using her own private email for the duration of her tenure at state. Now, this is against the law. There are a number of laws, which some of them are fairly recent, to prevent that, because it is required of government servants that all of their communications, whether they're written or email, need to be retained. So that's pretty bad as it is, but it could be even worse, because the question is, she was using her own private email, so how secure is that compared to a government one? and especially if she were transmitting any kind of classified documents. Now let's remember, this regime is very aggressive at investigating leakers. Let's look at James Rosen at Fox News, the senators and staff being having their phone lines tapped. General Petraeus, I mentioned him earlier in the show. Now, will they investigate Hitlery? Don't hold your breath. Interestingly enough, not using government email is actually just a civil matter. Judge Napolitano was on Fox News this morning, on Fox and Friends, and he said, no, this is a civil matter, so if the government wants to get those emails, they have to sue Hitlery in a civil case. However, exposing classified documents is a criminal felony, and that is, that is much more important. So, did that happen? And with exposing classified documents, in some ways, I believe, it doesn't even actually have to be that anybody did see them, but just the fact that they were out there and could have been found out, could have been read, that can be enough to make it a felony. So, interesting. Can we finally nail the witch? The lying witch? I don't know. Now, of course, they've already come out with their excuse. Colin Powell did it too. Yes, that's right. We've got to go back to the Bush era, and they did it too, so that's why Hitler can do it. Well, let's get the facts straight, you bunch of lying SOBs. Colin Powell may have done some communications on his private email. He did not exclusively do so. Plus, at the time he was in power, the laws about document retention were a lot laxer. Basically, people didn't use email as much, and the government hadn't got round to actually making laws. But in 2009, 2013, 2014, a number of laws were brought to Congress and signed into law by the Caliph Hussein that made it very, very strict as to the retention of those records. And Hitlery and her staff would have known that, and they chose to blatantly ignore it. So she is just as much an ignorer of the law as the a-hole in chief that lives in the White House, the usurper in the White House, is as well. So for her 4 years at State Department, she never had a government email address. And her personal emails have not been preserved on government department servers, which is required by the Federal Records Act. Now, when they asked for Benghazi emails after a lot of time, they begrudgingly gave them up. But yeah, begrudgingly, let's face it. And did we get everything? We don't know. They gave them a number of, X thousand records, but did we get everything? We don't know. So, folks, I hope we can nail the lying bitch this time. I hope this scuppers her chances of getting to the White House or even getting the Democratic nomination. Okay, folks, we're getting close to the end of the show. Boy, things do go quickly. Looking forward to seeing you all again next week. Please do join me. But I hear the music is starting, so it's time to say TTFN. It was fun. It just, it just went so quickly. But see me next week, and remember, tell your friends.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Patriot Come Lately Show. Please take what you have learned and share it with friends and family. Better still, tell them about the show so they can listen too. Remember to support the advertisers on the show. It helps keep this show on the air, and I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to joining you on the next show. Until then, keep spreading our message. Goodbye and God bless America.